Hey everybody, Dave here, doing a solo play today, and the game I chose today was Thomas Was Alone. It's a very great game, very narrative-based, narrative-heavy game, which I just love it. It tells a great story, very simple story. If you haven't played it, go buy it. It's one of my favorite games simply because of the story. So in this one, I won't be talking too much because I don't want to talk over the beautiful voice of the narrator. So let's get started. Now, the game is it's a platform puzzle kind of game. You control a bunch of characters and try and just keep getting to the next level.
Thomas was alone. Wow, a weird first thought to have.
Just the voice. I mean, you gotta love that voice.
Thomas decided to start listing his observations for posterity. 1. The whole alone thing. 2. Portals. They led somewhere. He'd yet to work out where. 3. Falling. Thomas was absolutely fantastic at falling. He was almost as good at falling as he was at observing. Okay, interesting. Thomas couldn't fall past this block. Think, damn it, think! What if there was some kind of inverted fall? Some way to... what's the word? Jump.
It's just... guy's name is Danny Wallace, and he's the type of voice that you would want to narrate your whole life. Kind of like a Morgan Freeman.
It worked! Thomas had solved the great inverted fall mystery.
Just imagine his voice in your everyday life. That'd be great. He makes this game 100%.
A big jump. But Thomas noted there was no real danger in missing it. The world didn't want him to fail here. It was pushing him, but gently.
I just love the simplicity of it. It's just beautiful in that there's really nothing there.
This all seemed a little dangerous. The world was not to be trusted. It was unstable, and it seemed to Thomas that it could let him down at any moment. He was starting to suspect it might even be doing so on purpose. Paranoia.
It makes you, having nothing there, no graphics or anything like that, makes you focus on the story.
Thomas wondered whether the portals were actually taking him anywhere. He felt like he was making progress, but there wasn't really any way to know. He seemed to be moving predominantly up and to the right, which might, or might not, be important.
It's just a good, different game. We get so picked up on graphics and how it looks and everything. Some games focus on that, and they don't really focus on a story, which a good story can make a game. I mean, all those old games from your childhood, they didn't have 1080p crazy realistic graphics like that. I mean, people fell in love with Ocarina of Time because of the story it told, and you connect it with the characters. And this game, despite its real minimalistic, boring look, you will connect with these characters.
It might have been paranoia again, but Thomas could have sworn the world was becoming more complicated. It always seemed to be one step ahead of his skills. It had been designed just for him. He wondered why. Was the world testing him? No, too obvious.
it's good to look. I mean, it's funny to look at playing video games from the character's perspective, which is pretty much what this is.
Something about the boiling, toxic, glowing water intimidated Thomas. He didn't like it. He certainly didn't want to swim in it. He made another mental note. 4. Water. Not good. To be avoided.
They throw in these... it's just a great narrative.
The loneliness was getting to Thomas. No amount of observation or obsessive note-taking could combat that.
It's amazing how they can give these squares and rectangles personalities. Through this whole game, you learn who acts in such a way and who likes what and what they're best at. And they're all squares. Squares are rectangles. No faces, and yet each has a personality. It's a great job by the writing staff.
Thomas had a new theory. The world was training him. He could feel himself getting smarter. There was the mental list to consider. Over the minutes and seconds since his spontaneous generation, he'd become a pretty skilled jumper. He was evolving. He just wished he had someone to share it with.
So even already, you're starting to get a story and starting to figure out what exactly this little rectangle feels, what he's going through. And the best part is it doesn't make it super crazy hard puzzles, because I think that would detract from the story it's trying to tell. It doesn't even want you to focus on the puzzles. It really wants you to focus on the story of this game. A story that's told very beautifully, again. And I'm just in love. I'm in love with this game.
Chris took an immediate and deep dislike to the skinny red rectangle. Who the hell did this Thomas think he was? Chris had been doing fine. He wasn't the highest jumper, but he'd held his own. He'd even been graceful at times. Well, not actually. Not technically graceful, it's probably the wrong word, but you know, fine. There was that skinny little runt leaping about like he owned the place.
See, they're shapes. And yet they all have personalities. Because of the narrator. I love games like this that are stories. Very simple. I mean, I'm not one for puzzles. Puzzle games, they're not really my thing. But I found myself playing this game, getting to the next level, because I wanted the story to continue. I wanted to find out what happens to these squares. And that's when you know it's a great story.
Okay, this was more like it. A glowy white thing. Only Chris could get to it, which of course made it all the more enticing. What would it do? What new opportunity might this switch open up to him?
I should say this...
Grace. Another chance for Thomas to jump slightly higher than Chris. How fortunate. Seriously. This made the whole switch pressing thing entirely worthwhile.
This is great. This game was made by Mike Bithell and Bosa Studios and Curve Studios.
Was this good? Because on the surface, it did not seem good. Chris was pretty scared. Little Red seemed fine, happy to be on his merry little adventure. Chris couldn't shake the feeling that things had taken a significant turn for the worse since Thomas had joined him. Sure, he'd been able to piggyback his way to ever so slightly higher platforms, but where had that got him? Well, to ever so slightly higher platforms, which was sort of his point.
It's great. I mean, I like it because it's different. You don't always need the best graphics like AAA titles have to have a great game. And I've always thought this, it's always the story is the most important aspect of a game. It's games with no story have no motivation to keep playing. If you don't find the game enjoyable, you're not going to play. But this, I love the story, and that's why you play this game.
He stared at Thomas with pure hatred. He seemed so very happy at their situation. Friends together, a brave fellowship of quadrilaterals on a quest for greatness. That would be fine. But it was all the obvious observation that Thomas was doing which grated. Every time they saw something vaguely new, Chris would hear a satisfied little from the vaulting idiot. He hoped the next portal would split them up, if only for a few levels.
Poor Chris. He's very self-conscious about his jumping, apparently. And all Thomas is trying to do is help him. See, these aren't the most difficult puzzles in the world. And yet this game is still fun to play.
John knew. He knew that this was his chance. A moment to shine. This was game day.
Got another rectangle in the mix now. It's good to work on your geometry, kids. It'll help.
Would not do. John needed room to show off his exceptional skills. As it was, he was trapped on the wrong side of these little dot things. Where did they come from, anyway?
I mean, the art style, too. I mean, the lighting, I mean, it's a very sleek-looking game.
John inhaled the air of the open space, and it smelled of awesome.
I don't know what awesome smells like.
Those muscles, to put his training to use, time to show those little dots how it was done. John decided to press the switch to let the little dots catch up with him. John cared for his new allies. You could tell from the sympathetic expression he practiced in the mirror all these years.
John seems like a likable guy. Seems to want to help Thomas, Chris. Chris doesn't seem like too much of a team player. He liked to be left alone. And Thomas is apparently the studious one, the observer. The music too. I mean, I think they did a good job with the music as well. It's not really. It seems. I don't. It just seems great. It's fitting. It's not distracting, but not repetitive. And yet, I'm sure it's just the same 3 or 4 minute clip. You can't really tell. I don't know. I didn't even realize there was music because I was just listening to the story. I know I keep saying that, but the story is great. I love a game with a good story. I mean, you play games to escape from real life.
John was happy to keep helping. He felt it was important to his image that he was seen to help the little guys.
Like when you were a kid and you read books to kind of escape reality, like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. You read them because they're entertaining. And you play games for the same reason, to be entertained. And this story, very entertaining. Oh no, Chris! Always forget, Chris can't jump. Not that there's anything wrong with that, Chris. I'm sure you're a great square. Aw, Chris. Can't leave him behind. See, the puzzles are just hard enough to make you feel rewarded, I guess is the right word. To make you feel like you're helping them. And then they break down the levels so they're all relatively quick. No, he needs to help Chris. Chris first.
He didn't mind them so much either. The red one, Thomas, had a charming way of applauding every time John jumps.
Classic Thomas. Barely made it. Doesn't even need that, he can just jump straight up.
The angry orange one was less immediately likeable, but his unremitting cynicism and tutting amused John.
John's just always so looking on the bright side, you know? So I catch myself talking to them like these squares are real people. When really, they're just squares. And yet, you think they're people. Treat them like people. I know I did when I played this game. Might sound dumb, but... chapter is
This is
10
interesting.
levels.
A floating target. This would require coordination, balance, and timing. John was sure the dots would be lost, but he was happy to guide them to triumph.
John's just trying to help. Ah! Why did I do that? It's the one thing I had to get used to was the controls. It's just queuing to switch between characters, and that sometimes gets confusing. Because you do, some later levels you have a lot more people involved. By people I mean geometry shapes, geometric, quadrilaterals.
Maybe that's what the dots were for. They were there to extend John's reach, to make his performance even more impressive. John liked the thought. He decided to keep them.
Because it was John's decision. Right. I think this is where I leave you guys.
This was how Claire would die. She knew it would happen eventually.
I don't want to give too much away.
Rubbish at jumping, and she moved slowly. She felt a little like her continued existence was breaking some kind of natural order. The crumbling pillar was a dramatic death, she supposed. Wait, what? Claire couldn't shake the feeling that she was not, in fact, dead. It was at that moment that Claire realised she had superpowers.
I don't want to give too much away. You can clearly see that you're going to keep meeting new people. And the story is captivating. So, go out and buy this game. Buy it on Steam. Or if you want a copy, just tell me. Maybe I'll even buy it for you. Because I love this game. I want people to play this game. They deserve a lot more credit than what they did. It's called Thomas Was Alone. It's by Bosses Studios and Curve Studios. Play it. Fall in love with it. Fall in love with some shapes. This has been Dave from Where the Time Go. If you want me to keep going, let me know in the comments. Like this video, subscribe, and if you want to see more, all that stuff. We have a bunch of links in the description for our Steam group, our Twitter, and our Facebook, and all that. So take a look at that. And until next time, I'm going to be playing with some shapes.